Aloha and welcome to Mana Inspiration with yours truly, Note Endurance. And always, we're going to have our scripture, and the scripture we have this week is going to be in Psalms chapter 1, verse 3, which states, "That person is like a tree planted by the streams of water, which yields its fruit in season, and whose leaf does not wither. Whatever they do prospers." 100%. And it also brings me to the quote I heard, and it says, "Sometimes you think you're being buried, but you're really being planted." That sounds like if you were a seed, you may feel like you're being buried, but actually you're only being developed. It's almost like the butterfly or the caterpillar that turns into the butterfly. We have to go through, I would say, that time where we are growing, where we are planted. And that also brings me to the quote from our pastor, Pastor Bo, which told me, "You have to grow where you are planted." And 100%, I think that's the only way you really develop a good structure, a good, I would say, friends, family, support group, is by growing where you're planted. It also helps you, and it also reminds me of the rose that grew from the crack in the concrete. If you ever seen that picture, it's straight concrete in the sidewalk and there's a crack in it and there's a beautiful rose right in between. And that reminds me of me and you. With that circumstances that we go through, are we that rose that grows through that tough exterior to show the beauty which is on the inside? It also brings me to the book, "The Rose That Grew from the Crack in the Concrete," from the rapper Tupac, or Tupac Shakur. Now, his book, this came out in 1996. He was really ahead of his time. I think within 2 years, Tupac created close to 10 albums, like two, three books, two movies, all in like a 2.5, 3 year span. He had a purpose. And I think that's what we should have. Like that rose, have a purpose. And here's a quote or a poetry from that book from Tupac. It says, "Did you hear about the rose that grew from the crack in the concrete, proving nature's law wrong? It learned how to walk without having feet. Funny it seems, but by keeping its dreams, it learned to be a fresh of breath air. It learned to breathe fresh air. Long live the rose that grew from concrete when nobody else cared." That's beautiful because I think all of us think that when nobody else cares, and this is where I ask you, are you like that rose that is growing from the concrete? Are you not giving up? Are you not letting the circumstances of your situation determine your outcome? Are you standing your ground? Do you think if that flower moved somewhere else, it definitely would have grown? But I think with that tenacity, with the perseverance, it grows through there because it wants to be that breath of fresh air. Now, what does it mean to be planted? I think three things, and this is what, there's always more. And this is just my point of view of what does it mean to be planted. And I think it's to be faithful and dedicated to something bigger than yourself. I think it's also to help encourage and support others. Number three, I think it's giving and not expecting anything in return. And I think that's really dedicate yourself to being planted with somebody, because if you're planted in a belief or in somebody's vision of what you see also, being planted is only going to help you benefit. It's only going to help you grow. Like we're talking about that rose that grew up through the crack of the concrete. Are you tough? Are you staying planted? Are you sitting here ready and preparing yourself for the yes that's coming around the corner? Or maybe you're just not feeling 100% tied in with anything. This is where I challenge you to go out and get planted into something. With Thrive Church, we have something called a planted class. And this is just a new teaching for people that are beginning in the Bible. And I think everything comes around a lot of being planted, because if we're not planted where we are, we won't grow, we won't excel. There has to be, there's that saying, the light only comes when it's pitch black. And I think that's just like the quote we stated this in the beginning. Sometimes you think you're being buried, but we're really being planted. So, what are you being planted in? What are you dedicating yourself to and giving yourself? What are you being faithful to? Who are you encouraging? I encourage you to get planted into something. That way, it helps you create a bigger purpose than you. Aloha, guys. I love you. You have a blessed week. And tune in for next week on our next message. Share it, like it, subscribe. I salute to all the soldiers. Aloha, guys. You guys have a blessed week. Thanks.